The unexpected meeting, the hum of the mining station, was the only sound Jack heard as he tightened the last bolt on the airlock panel. The air smelled faintly of metal and oil, the kind of scent that clung to every corridor in this old station. He worked alone most nights, preferring the quiet over the loud chatter of the day crew. But tonight, the quiet felt different. It was heavier, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Jack reached for his toolbox when he heard its soft, almost hesitant footsteps echoing down the metal hall. They were light, far too light to be one of the station's workers. He straightened slowly, his hand instinctively brushing the handle of the wrench at his belt. When he turned, his breath caught in his throat. Standing at the end of the corridor was a girl at least. She looked like a girl. Her skin had a faint blue tint, smooth and almost glowing under the dim lights. Silver eyes stared at him, wide and unblinking, like the reflection of stars on still water. Her clothes were torn, hanging loosely over her. Small frame around her wrist was a broken metal shackle. She wasn't just lost, she had been held somewhere. Jack opened his mouth to ask who she was, but she spoke first. Her voice was soft and strange. The words shaky. "How are you alive here?" she asked in broken human speech. Jack frowned, confused by the question. "I work here," he replied slowly. "Who are you?" The girl didn't answer. Instead, her eyes darted to the shadows behind her. Her body tensed, like she expected something or someone to appear at any moment. She took a small step closer, her bare feet silent on the cold metal floor. There was something desperate in the way she moved, as if each step toward him was a choice between fear and hope. "You must not let them find me, human," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You will not survive either." Before Jack could ask who they were, the station's alarm blared. A sharp, blailing sound filled the corridor, flashing red lights painting the walls. He heard the metallic clang of boots in the distance guards. The girl's eyes widened, and for the first time, he saw raw fear in them, without thinking. Jack grabbed her arm gently and pulled her toward the repair bay. She stumbled, but didn't resist. Inside, he shut the door and hit the manual lock, the sound of footsteps growing louder outside. "Hide here," Jack said, pulling an old blanket from a shelf and tossing it over her. She crouched down behind a stack of scrap panels, her silver eyes barely visible under the fabric. The door rattled once as someone passed by. Jack's heart pounded. If they searched the room, he would have no excuse, no explanation, only trouble. Minutes passed before the footsteps faded. Jack let out a slow breath and turned back to her. "Now," he said, "tell me what's going on." But she only shook her head. "They will kill me," she whispered. "And you, if you help." "Me?" Jack crouched down so he was level with her. "Who's chasing you?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I cannot say," she murmured. "Only that I am." Marked, the word carried weight. He didn't know what it meant in her culture, but it was clear it wasn't good. From the hallway, Jack heard faint voices. "Lost royal asset. Worth millions of credits." The words froze him. He glanced at her, but she avoided his eyes. "Royal asset?" He asked quietly. She didn't answer, but her hands clenched tightly in the blanket. Something about her told Jack she wasn't just some runaway, and the more he thought about it, the more he realized he was already involved. He had locked the door, hidden her. They found her here. He'd be accused of helping. "You're in danger," he said slowly. "But so am I now." She looked at him then, her silver eyes softening just slightly. "I warned you, human," she said. "But you didn't turn me away." Before he could reply, she swayed where she sat. Her eyes fluttered, and she slumped forward. Jack caught her just in time. Her skin was warmer, now too warm. When he pulled the blanket aside, he saw a faint glow on her side. A wound, shallow but strange, was spreading light through her veins like cracks in glass. Jack had never seen anything like it. He reached for his medkit, but as soon as the spray touched her skin, the wound burned brighter and the girl gasped in pain. "It won't work," she said weakly. "Human medicine cannot fix me." Her voice was fading, her eyes half closed. Jack felt a chill settle over him. Whatever had happened to this girl, whatever was hunting Hurt, was far bigger than he had expected. And he knew one thing: if he didn't act soon, she wasn't going to make it through the night. Secrets in the shadows. Jack stayed crouched beside the alien girl, his hand still on her shoulder. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin gave off that strange silver glow from the wound. He didn't know if it was dangerous or just part of her species, but one thing was clear: if she didn't get help soon, she wouldn't last long. "I need to know your name," Jack said softly. The girl opened her eyes halfway, hesitating. Finally, she shook her head. "No name." "Not for you," she whispered. Jack frowned. "Why not?" She looked away, her voice trembling. "If you know it, you are bound to me. That is how it works for my kind." Before Jack could ask more, he heard faint footsteps again. Slower this time, someone was searching the area. He moved quietly to the wall console, switching off the repair bay lights. The room fell into darkness, except for the faint glow coming from her wound. She noticed his gaze and quickly pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "Don't look," she said sharply. "It will draw them here." From the corridor outside, muffled voices carried through the metal walls. "Orders are clear. If she's found, alive is better. But dead is fine too." Jack felt his jaw tighten. Whoever these people were, they weren't planning to bring her back gently. She closed her eyes at the sound of those words. "I told you," she whispered. "Helping me is death for you." Jack didn't respond. Instead, he pressed his ear to the wall, trying to track the voices. They were moving further away. For now, he let out a slow breath and turned back to her. "You need medical attention," he said. Her silver eyes opened again, locking on his. "No doctor here can help me. My blood will poison them," she said softly. "Only one thing can heal me, stellar bloom." Jack tilted his head. "What's that?" She hesitated, as if deciding whether to trust him. "A mineral," she said finally. "It grows in the deep mines, where your kind is forbidden to go." Jack had heard of the abandoned asteroid mines before, in stable, dark, and crawling with creatures that had claimed more lives than the station guards liked to admit. "You're saying," Jack started, "you want me to go down there alone?" The girl's expression softened slightly. "If you do, I will live." He almost laughed at the absurdity. But the way she looked at him, half hope, half fear, kept him from saying no outright. Instead, he asked, "Why are they hunting you? Who are you to them?" Her eyes dropped again. "I am marked," she said simply. Jack leaned closer. "Marked for what?" She was silent for a long time before she finally answered, "My people. They are ruled by blood. Those born with silver eyes are different. We are forbidden to touch outsiders. If we do, both must die." Jack blinked, replaying their earlier meeting in his mind. He had grabbed her hand when they ran from the corridor. It hadn't meant anything to him at the time, just instinct, but from the way she was looking at him now, it meant everything to her. "So, by helping you, I already signed my own death sentence?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. She didn't deny it. "Why not run from me then?" he asked. Her gaze lingered on his for a moment, and she whispered, "Because you didn't run from me." The words caught him off guard. He was used to people in this sector looking out only for themselves. But now, here was an alien girl with shackles still fresh on her wrist, telling him he had already crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Before he could reply, the sound of boots echoed again, this time heavier. More urgent, the door to the repair bay hissed. Jack froze. The manual lock was holding for now, but it Wouldn't if they tried hard enough? He turned to her. Stay hidden. She reached for his wrist. Her grip surprisingly strong. Don't let them take me. If they do, I will not survive the trip back. Jack moved to the side of the door, wrench in hand, ready if anyone forced it open. The footsteps stopped right outside. A shadow moved under the door's seam. Then silence after a few tense seconds. The shadow shifted away and the steps retreated. Jack exhaled, lowering the wrench. He turned back toward her, but she had collapsed again. Her skin looked paler now, the glow from the wound dimming. Jack knelt beside her. You said this stellar bloom is the only thing that can heal you, he said firmly. Then I'll get it. Her eyes snapped open, shock flickering across her face. You don't understand. Human, she said urgently. If you do this, if you save me, you will be bound to me forever. Jack frowned. Bound. What does that mean? Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer. Instead, she whispered something in her own languagey soft phrase that Jack didn't understand. Her voice was almost too quiet to hear. It sounded like a prayer. Or a promise. And in that moment, Jack knew he was already in too deep to turn back. A dangerous bargain. Jack didn't sleep that night. The repair bay was silent, except for the faint hum of the station systems and the alien girl's uneven breathing. She was lying on the folded blankets in the corner, her silver eyes closed. Her body tense even in rest. Every now and then, a soft glow pulsed from the wound on her side. It looked weaker than before, like a dying ember. Jack sat with his back against the wall, turning her words over in his head. If you save me, you will be bound to me forever. He didn't know if she meant it as a warning or a promise. Either way, he couldn't just leave her to die. When the first shift bell rang across the station, he stood and quietly gathered what he needed. A portable lamp, a rope coil, a plasma cutter, a respirator mask, and his father's old mining gloves. He had only one destination, the forbidden asteroid mines. It was the only place she said the stellar bloom grew. And if that's what it would take to keep her alive, he was going to get it. The girl stirred. As he strapped the cutter to his belt, her silver eyes opened slightly, the faint light from them cutting through the dim bay. You're leaving, she said softly. Jack stopped. I'm getting your cure. Her expression tensed. The mines are not just dangerous. They are cursed. Jack gave a small smirk. Then it's a good thing I don't believe in curses. She pushed herself up weakly. Human, you must understand. Johan comes back from their hole. He didn't reply, just moved toward the door. Before he left, she spoke again, her voice almost breaking. If you survive, and you bring the bloom to me, your life will never be yours again. Jack paused, glanced back at her, and simply said, Guess we'll find out. The outer hatch to the mines was locked with warning signs in 3 different languages. The painted words read, Authorized personnel only. Entry forbidden. Risk of death. Jack keyed in an old maintenance code he'd learned years ago while repairing an oxygen pump in the tunnels. The heavy door groaned open, releasing a stale breath of air that smelled of rust and dust. The mines were carved deep into the asteroid, the walls lined with jagged rock and traces of old drill marks. The darkness inside seemed heavier than normal darkness. Even with his lamp, Jack felt as though the shadows moved on their own. His boots crunched on loose gravel as he descended. The deeper he went, the more silent it became. No hum of machinery, no echo of his own footsteps, just silence, like the place was holding its breath. He moved carefully, scanning every corner. The stellar bloom was said to grow near underground heat vents, feeding off the warmth. If he could find the faint shimmer of its petals, he'd know he was close. Jack turned a corner and froze. A skeleton lay sprawled against the wall. It was wearing a miner's suit, human, but the helmet's visor was shattered. Claw marks ran deep across the chest plate. Jack swallowed hard, stepping over the body. The girl's words echoed in his head. No one comes back from their hole. After nearly an hour, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. Steam hissed from cracks in the ground, and the air was thick with heat. And there, nestled in the center of a glowing vent, was a patch of stellar bloom. Its petals shimmered like molten gold, swaying gently, even though there was no wind. Jack approached slowly, his heart racing. He had just reached out when a voice growled from the shadows. "You have touched the forbidden girl." He spun around. A figure stepped into the light, a towering alien warrior clad in black armor, a long plasma blade resting against his shoulder. The warrior's skin was pale gray, his eyes burning with an intense blue light. Jack gripped the plasma cutter on his belt, keeping his stance ready. "You're here for the bloom too?" he asked. The warrior tilted his head, studying Jack. "No. I'm here for you." Jack's grip tightened. "If you're here to take her back, you'll have to go through me." The alien didn't move closer, but instead, he lowered to one knee. Jack blinked in shock. "You are the chosen," the warrior said. "The prophecy has been fulfilled. You touched the royal blood, and she still lives." Jack stared, unsure if this was some kind of trick. What prophecy? The warrior rose again, towering over him. "There will be a human," the alien said slowly. "One who defies the law, touches the silver-eyed air, and survives. That human will change the fate of two worlds." Jack's mind raced silver-eyed air. That could only mean the girl. So she wasn't just a runaway, she was royalty, and somehow he was now tied to her in a way he didn't understand. The warrior stepped aside, gesturing toward the stellar bloom. "Take it. But you must come with me after. Her life and your life are now one." Jack hesitated. If this was true, everything had just become much bigger than he thought. But right now, all that mattered was getting the bloom back to her. He knelt, carefully cutting the glowing petals from the base. As the heat licked at his skin, he thought of her lying in that repair bay, weak, afraid, but still defiant. When he stood, bloom in hand, the warrior was already moving toward the exit. "Come, human," the alien said. "The princess waits." Into the forbidden mines, Jack followed the alien warrior through the twisting tunnels. The man, if you could call him, that moved with a quiet strength, his heavy boots making almost no sound on the gravel. Jack kept one hand on the pouch carrying the stellar bloom. Feeling its faint warmth through the fabric, it pulsed in his palm like a heartbeat. Somehow, he knew the girl's life depended on every second he wasted. They passed through a narrow shaft lit only by Jack's lamp. Shadows danced along the jagged walls. "Why help me?" Jack asked quietly. The warrior didn't turn his head. "I am sworn to her bloodline," he said, voice deep and steady. "But the prophecy is older than my oath." Jack frowned. "She didn't tell me anything about a prophecy." The warrior glanced back at him briefly. "She would not. She does not yet believe it herself." They emerged into a larger chamber, one side opening into a sheer drop. Jack peered over the edge. Was bottomless, only blackness below. Thin streams of steam hissed up from cracks far down. The warrior walked along the ledge with calm steps. Jack followed more carefully, his boots skidding once on loose stone. "Your people. They're hunting her," Jack said after a while. "They called her a royal asset." The warrior's tone darkened. "She is no asset. She is the rightful heir to the high throne of Irelia." Jack stopped for a moment. "Princess," he'd guessed she was important, but hearing it confirmed sent a strange jolt through him. That meant whoever wanted her was willing to kill to take her power or keep her from it. The warrior noticed Jack's pause. "She carries the silver eyes of the true line," he said. "They are rare and feared because of what they can awaken." Jack's brow furrowed. "Awaken?" The alien gave a small, unreadable smile. "You will see." They continued upward until the faint hum of the mining station's ventilation returned. Finally, they reached the outer hatch. The metal door hissed as it slid open, releasing stale, recycled air into the tunnels. Jack stepped through first, then froze. 2 station guards were waiting outside. Their rifles were already raised. "Step away from the alien," one barked. Jack's hand instinctively went to the plasma cutter at his belt. The warrior stepped forward calmly, placing himself between Jack and the guns. "You will lower your weapons," he said in a voice so commanding it felt like it pressed against the air. The guards hesitated, but only for a moment. Then one shook his head. "Our orders are clear. She must be returned to the syndicate." Jack's grip on the cutter tightened. "She's not going anywhere with you," he said. The guard's eyes narrowed. "Then you're both dead," one growled, moving his finger to the trigger. Before the shot came, the warrior moved in one swift motion. His plasma blade ignited with a deep hum. The air hissed as the glowing weapon cut through the rifles like paper. The guards stumbled back in shock. Jack didn't wait. He grabbed the pouch tighter and ran toward the repair bay. The warrior kept pace beside him, moving with an ease that made Jack wonder just how many battles he'd fought. When they reached the bay, Jack rushed inside. The girl Lyra was still on the floor, her breathing shallow, her silver eyes fluttered. Open when she saw him. "You came back," she whispered. Jack knelt beside her and pulled the stellar bloom from the pouch. Its petals glowed brighter in her presence. "How do I use it?" he asked quickly. Her gaze softened. "You already have." Before he could ask what she meant, she reached out and touched the petals. The golden light spread instantly into her fingers, traveling up her arm like a gentle fire. The wound on her side pulsed, then closed slowly, leaving smooth skin behind. Her breathing steadied, and color returned to her cheeks. Jack exhaled in relief. "I thought I was too late." "You almost were," she said quietly, her voice stronger now. The warrior stepped inside, bowing his head. "Princess Illyra," he said, "the human has fulfilled the prophecy. The bond is sealed." Illyra's eyes widened in surprise. "And was that fear bond?" Jack asked, looking between them. The warrior spoke as if reciting from memory. "The one who touches the silver-eyed air in her moment of death becomes her life-bound. His fate and hers are one. If she dies, so will he. If he falls, so will she." Jack froze. Illyra looked down, not meeting his eyes. "I told you," she said softly. "Your life would never be yours again." A sharp clang echoed outside the bay. The warrior's head snapped toward the door. "They have found us," he said. Illyra stood slowly, her posture different now, straighter. "Regal." She looked at Jack. "If you stay, they will kill you," she said. "If you run, they will kill me." Jack looked at her, then at the warrior. Somewhere deep inside, a choice was already made. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. Illyra's silver eyes shone, not with fear this time, but with something else entirely. The warrior gripped his plasma blade. "Then prepare yourself, human. Tonight, you fight for a princess." The truth revealed. The bay doors shook under the force of heavy boots outside. Every clang echoed like a countdown. Jack stood at Illyra's side, one hand on his plasma cutter, the other clenched tight. The alien warrior positioned himself in front of them both, his stance like a wall of steel. For a moment, Jack caught Illyra's gaze, her silver eyes calm, despite the chaos outside. "They will not stop until you're gone," Jack said. "They will not stop until you're gone," Illyra replied quietly. The words struck him harder than the alarms blaring. The bond, the warrior had said it plainly. If she died, he died. If he fell, so would she. The first bang hit the door. Metal groaned. The warrior didn't move. Instead, He spoke to Illyra in a deep, formal tone Jack couldn't understand. Her expression shifted first defiance, then a reluctant nod. She turned to Jack. "There are things you need to know before this door falls." He frowned. Now's not really the time for a history lesson, but her voice carried a weight that silenced him. "My bloodline rules Varelia, but not all of my people want the Silver Eyes to remain in power. There are those who fear what we are, what we can awaken." Jack's brow furrowed. "Awaken." The warrior said that too. Illyra stepped closer, her gaze holding his. "In our oldest legends, the silver-eyed heir was said to have a gift. But only when touched by a human, the union of two different worlds would open a power strong enough to shift the stars themselves." Jack shook his head. "That's a lot of weight to put on one handshake." Illyra's lips twitched, but there was no humor in her eyes. "You didn't just take my hand, Jack. You took my life into yours." The truth hit him harder than the warrior's prophecy. This wasn't just protection, it was survival. Their lives were now one thread outside. Another crash rattled the door. Jack glanced at the warrior. "Why? Didn't you tell me sooner?" The warrior's deep voice rumbled. "If you knew the cost, you might have refused." "And she would be dead." Illyra's voice softened. "I didn't ask you to save me because of the prophecy. I asked because I didn't want to die alone." Her honesty struck something in Jack, something raw. He thought of the first time he saw her, frightened in the hallway, but still moving toward him instead of away. The door buckled inward. Jack raised his cutter. "Fine," he said. "We'll talk about the whole fate of the galaxy thing later. Let's just survive first." The warrior nodded once and stepped forward. The door gave way with a sharp hiss as armed guards flooded in. Their armor gleaming under the bay lights, they shouted orders, rifles up. The warrior's plasma blade came alive in a blinding arc, slicing the first two weapons clean in half. Jack ducked under a blast of blue energy, the heat scorching the air above him. Illyra stayed close, moving with a strange grace that made it seem she was watching every angle at once. One guard lunged for Jack. He swung his cutter upward, the heated edge slashing across the man's chest plate, sending sparks flying. The guard fell back, howling. Another came from behind, but Illyra stepped in. Her hand glowing faintly, she touched the guard's arm, and his weapon flew from his grasp as if ripped away by unseen hands. Jack stared for half a second. So this was part of the awakening she'd mentioned. Her silver eyes glowed brighter now, threads of light seeming to ripple in the air around her. The warrior cut down the last attacker, his blade humming low before fading. The bay was silent again, except for their breathing. Illyra swayed slightly, catching herself on the workbench. "That's why they fear me," she said softly. "That's why they want me dead before the awakening is complete." Jack stepped closer, and complete means. Her gaze locked with his. "It means there is more," she said. "But the rest only happens if the bond is sealed willingly." Jack's jaw tightened. "Willingly." He repeated. Illyra nodded. "You can still walk away." "Jack, if you leave now, they will hunt me. But you will live if you stay. You will never live as you once did." He thought about the mines, the bloom, the way she'd clung to life despite everything. He thought about her telling him she didn't want to die alone. And in that moment, the choice was easy. "I'm already in this, Illyra," he said firmly, "and I'm not leaving you." Her silver eyes widened not in fear, but something warmer. The warrior bowed his head slightly. "It is done," he said. "The choice is made. The bond will hold." A distant alarm began to sound different from the earlier warning. Illyra's face darkened. "They've called for reinforcements. We won't have long before the main assault team arrives." Jack glanced at the warrior. "Any ideas?" The alien nodded. "Yes, leave this station before they seal the docks. But once we do, There will be no turning back. Jack looked at Alira. She didn't speak. But the way she stood told him she was ready. Ready to fight, ready to run, ready. For whatever came next, Jack gripped the cutter tighter. "Then let's move," he said, as they slipped out into the dim corridors. Jack realized something. This wasn't just about keeping her alive anymore. It was about what they could become together. And somewhere deep inside, he knew. The galaxy was about to change. The chase and the choice, the station corridors were no longer quiet. Everywhere Jack looked, flashing red lights bathed the walls in warning colors. The hum of the ventilation was drowned out by the pounding of boots. Somewhere behind them, a voice over the intercom echoed through the halls. "Contain the target. Use lethal force on the human." Jack tightened his grip on the plasma cutter, glancing at Alira as she kept pace beside him. She moved like she belonged in danger, her steps light, her eyes scanning every turn before they reached it. The alien warrior followed close behind, his plasma blade unlit but ready in his hand. They reached a junction, to corridors left toward the maintenance wing. Right toward the docks, the warrior's voice was firm. "We go right," Jack hesitated. "That's the long way. Maintenance connects to the docks faster." The warrior shook his head. "Faster is where they'll set the trap, before." Jack could reply. A sharp hiss filled the air. From the left corridor, a metal shutter slammed down, sealing the path entirely. Seconds later, armed soldiers emerged from the shadows of the right corridor. Blocking their way, Jack cursed under his breath. They were surrounded. The warrior ignited his blade in a flash of light. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Alira stepped forward instead, placing herself between Jack and the oncoming guards. "Alira," Jack began, but her silver eyes glowed brighter, cutting him off. The air between her and the soldiers seemed to ripple like heat waves. The first soldier lifted his weapon only for it to fly from his hands, skidding across the floor toward her. The second's helmet display flickered and went black. He staggered backward, clutching his head as if a storm had erupted inside it. Jack watched in disbelief. Her power wasn't just strength, it was control, precise, deliberate, and terrifying. But as the last soldier fell, Alira swayed. Jack caught her before she hit the floor. Her breathing was quick, shallow. "That's enough," he said firmly. She shook her head. "It's never enough." "Not until we're free." The warrior knelt beside them. "Her strength grows, but so does the strain," he said quietly. "You are tied to it now, human. If she pushes too far, you will feel it too." Jack frowned, but before he could respond, a heavy explosion shook the station. The lights flickered, and a voice over the intercom shouted orders they couldn't understand. The warrior stood, scanning the corridor ahead. "They are breaching the lower docks. We have minutes at most." They moved quickly, keeping to the shadows. At one point, Jack spotted a maintenance hatch halfway up the wall. "This way," he said, pointing. The warrior eyed it, then nodded. Jack boosted Alira up first, her small frame slipping through the narrow opening with ease. He followed, pulling himself into the cramped crawl space. The warrior came last, sealing the hatch behind them. The crawl space was dark and tight. Only the dim glow from Alira's eyes lit their way. Jack moved close enough to speak in a low voice. "You really weren't kidding when you said I wouldn't live the same life again." Alira didn't look back, but her voice was softer now. "I told you to leave, human." Jack shook his head. "And I told you I'm not leaving you." For a moment, silence filled the narrow space. Then Alira whispered, "If you die because of me, I will never forgive myself." Jack smiled faintly despite the situation. "Guess we'll just have to make sure we both live then." They emerged into a dim loading bay. Old cargo containers were stacked high, dust covering their surfaces. Jack could see the dock entrance at the far end, Freedom, just 100 meters away. But between them and the exit, A squad of armored soldiers stood ready, weapons aimed directly at the door they had come from. The warrior placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "This is where you decide," he said, his deep voice low. Jack frowned. "Decide what?" "Whether you will fight beside her, or send her away to save yourself." Jack's chest tightened. If he stayed, the prophecy's bond meant his life was tied to hers. There would be no turning back. If he left now, she might still find another way to survive. But he'd never know if she did. Illyra turned to him, her silver eyes shimmering in the dim light. "You don't owe me your life," she said softly. Jack met her gaze. "Maybe not," he said, "but I'm giving it anyway." Her lips parted, and for a heartbeat, there was something unspoken in her eyes. The warrior gave a short nod. "Then you are no longer just a human to her," he said. "You are life-bound." The soldiers began to move, their rifles lifting. Jack stepped forward, cutter igniting with a sharp hum. Illyra's eyes flared with silver light. The warrior's blade burned to life. The first shot came and the fight began. Energy bolts scorched the air as Jack ducked behind a crate. Illyra moved like liquid light, pulling weapons from her enemy's hands with unseen force. Jack darted forward, striking with his cutter, forcing two soldiers back toward the warrior's sweeping blade. The sound of metal on metal, shouts, and the hum of energy filled the bay. One soldier aimed directly at Illyra. Jack saw the barrel flash without thinking. He threw himself in front of her, the bolt grazing his side in a burst of searing pain. Illyra caught him before he stumbled, her hands trembling. "You're hurt," she whispered. Jack gritted his teeth. "We're both still standing. That's what matters." The last soldier fell, and the dock entrance stood clear. The warrior turned to them. "Go. Now, before the next wave arrives." Illyra slipped an arm around Jack to steady him as they ran toward the docking hatch, as the doors slid open to the black void of Chris. At space beyond, Jack realized this was no longer just about escaping. It was about choosing a side, and he had already made his choice. The moment she never knew could happen, the dock doors slid shut behind them with a heavy clang, sealing out the chaos of the station. Jack leaned against the cold metal wall of the small shuttle, clutching his side. The wound burned, but it was nothing compared to the rush in his chest adrenaline, relief, and the strange weight of what had just happened. Illyra knelt beside him, her silver eyes scanning the injury without a word. She tore a strip of cloth from her sleeve and wrapped it around him with careful hands. Her touch was steady, but her lips trembled. "You could have died," she said softly. Jack managed a small grin. "Would have been a lousy way to end the day." The alien warrior moved to the cockpit, powering up the shuttle's engines. "Once we are in open space, they will not be able to track us easily," he said without looking back. Jack felt the hum of the engines vibrate through the floor. The sound meant freedom, or at least the start of it. Illyra stayed close, her gaze fixed on him. "When I first saw you," she said slowly, "I thought you would be like the others. Afraid of me, disgusted by me." Jack shook his head. "Guess I didn't get that memo." Her lips curved faintly, but there was still a shadow in her eyes. "You touched me when no one was allowed to. And instead of death, it gave me life." Jack leaned back, wincing slightly. "Funny thing is," he said, "I'm not sure who saved who." The shuttle broke free from the station's docking clamps with a jolt. Through the viewport, the stars stretched across the black like an endless ocean. For the first time since this started, Jack let himself breathe. But Illyra wasn't looking at the stars, she was looking at him. Her silver eyes reflected the starlight as she spoke. "In my culture, the life-bound bond is sacred. It is not just a link of life and death. It is a promise. We share pain, yes, but also strength. Your courage becomes mine. My power becomes yours." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Power?" I don't exactly feel stronger right now. Elira's gaze deepened. You will? When the time comes. He studied her for a moment. You've been running a long time, haven't you? She nodded. Since the night of the attack. The night they tried to end the Silver Eyes forever. I escaped, but I left everything behind: my home, my people, my family. Jack's voice softened. And now? She took a slow breath. Now I am not running alone. The warrior's voice came from the cockpit. We have a tail, he said grimly. Jack pushed himself up to look. 2 small hunter crafts had detached from the station and were closing in fast. They won't stop, Illyra murmured. Jack gritted his teeth. Then we make them stop. The warrior glanced over his shoulder. There are 2 choices. 1, I take the shuttle into the asteroid field and lose them. 2, we turn and fight. But if we fight, your bond will be tested. Jack met Elira's gaze. She didn't speak, but her hand reached for his. In that moment, he understood fighting wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that they could face death together. Turn us around, Jack said. The warrior nodded once and swung the shuttle hard. Stars spun outside the viewport until the hunters filled the center of the glass. The first volley hit them with a shudder. Jack gripped the edge of the seat as alarms blared. Illyra's eyes flashed silver, and he felt something warmth pulse. Through the bond, his pain dulled, his heartbeat steadied. It wasn't adrenaline, this time it was her. Now you feel it, she said quietly. Jack nodded. Let's use it. The warrior fired back, plasma bolts streaking through the black. One hunter swerved, the other pressed in closer. Illyra lifted her hand, and the air in the shuttle seemed to thicken. Jack felt a strange pull in his chest, as if their heartbeats had synced. On the viewport, the nearest hunter suddenly faltered, its thrusters sputtering before it spun out of control, drifting into the dark. Jack stared. You did that. Her breathing was heavy. We did that. The second hunter came in fast, weapons primed. Jack moved to the gunnery controls, his hands steady despite the wound. Illyra's touch on his shoulder sent another surge of focus through him. When he fired, the shot landed clean, tearing through the hunter's wing. The ship spiraled away into the void, leaving them alone with the stars. Silence filled the shuttle except for the steady hum of the engines. Jack slumped back into the seat Illyra sank down beside him, still catching her breath. You fought for me, she said softly, not because of the prophecy, but because you chose to. Jack smiled faintly. Guess I'm not good at walking away. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then she said, almost to herself, I never thought this could happen, that I could trust a human. That I could feel safe with one. Her voice broke slightly, and Jack saw the raw truth in her eyes. He reached out, taking her hand in his. Then let's make sure you never have to run again. The warrior in the cockpit didn't turn, but there was a small, knowing smile on his face. Your journey begins now, he said, and so does hers. Illyra leaned her head against Jack's shoulder, her silver eyes still glowing faintly. Somewhere in the vast stretch of space ahead, danger waited. But for the first time, she didn't fear it, because now she wasn't just a hunted princess. She was life-bound, and the human at her side had already chosen her.